Why are there mounting calls for President Cyril Ramaphosa to reshuffle his cabinet? Should President Ramaphosa reduce his bloated cabinet which he inherited from former President Zuma? Does Ramaphosa have what it takes to deal with all those implicated in the state capture and corruption? How is the finance minister likely to fill the 51 billion rand revenue shortfall announced in October last year? What time is it? It's question time. Khotsong, Grula, Muraro, and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. President Cyril Ramaphosa replied to yesterday's debate on the State of the Nation address. The long-awaited SONA was finally delivered by President Ramaphosa on Friday. As part of his reply, President Ramaphosa repeated what he calls a new deal and reiterated the importance of working with all political parties to address the challenges facing the country. Land expropriation without compensation, state capture and corruption, as well as the reshuffling of the cabinet dominated the proceedings. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is expected to deliver what most economists call a tough and unpopular budget tomorrow. We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The number to dial is 089-110-4210, internationally +2789 110-4210. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. And a reminder that you can also stream us on our Facebook page, SABC News Online, and our YouTube channel, YouTube/SABC Digital News. My guest, Professor Patrick Bond from the Wits University School of Governance, and joining us from our Durban studio, Israel Mkhize is a political economist. But before we go into tonight's discussion, let's take a look at what President Ramaphosa had to say about the economy.
What emerged clearly from the debate yesterday is that all members of parliament are committed to build a nation where progress is measured not by growth in GDP or global competitiveness rankings, but by how the lives of the most vulnerable of South Africans, the most marginalized of South Africans, can change for the better. That is how they are measuring it. Honorable members, we are building a nation where our greatest concern must be those in society who have the least, the poor, the unemployed. The most important people in this country are not those who walk the red carpet to Parliament, but those who spend their nights on the benches outside the gates of Parliament.
Well, that's President Cyril Ramaphosa there speaking about the South African economy. Now let's get into the show. Prof, welcome. What stood out for you?
Well, I think, Mpho, that there are long-standing criticisms since August 2012 of Cyril Ramaphosa at Marikana. Yeah. Some say the blood stain is still there. Some say the outflow of the profits to Bermuda for advertising, a bit of a tax dodge. And some say the failure to build houses. The mandate, the legal requirement was 5,500. Under Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership, only 3 were built. Now, he said atonement for Marikana. Yeah. And secondly, if a man is that rich, and some of it is through these illegal tax dodges or illicit financial flows, he said a lifestyle audit. Now, if you have several billion rand in your net worth, I'm sure he'll pass. He can make all sorts of excuses for how he got that money. Yeah. But there may be others who can't pass, who have a regular minister salary, a DG salary, but they're living like kings. And that might be one of the tests. Of course, the big question is still to come, the budget, and whether a cabinet full of the Zupta characters, finance, energy, you've got mining, you've got social development, you've got a few ministers that probably will have to go, and the question is when. And even tonight, when there's a reception for ex-President Zuma, what will the mood be? And will Zuma be angry and take that anger back to KZN, where there's always a chance to whip up opposition?
Okay. Kabazel.
Baba.
What were your highlights?
Well, my highlight is that the President is really trying to get us back to the spirit of the National Development Plan, particularly to emphasize on what I can call the qualitative aspect of the National Development Plan, which talks of your social transformation. Well, I don't think he's actually rejecting the quantitative approach which looks at GDP, when he was saying that it should no longer be about GDP calculation when we're evaluating growth and the quality of life of South Africans. But he was saying that coupled with that, growth must be at the center, the calculation of the GDP, but at the same time, the people who are on the bottom ladder of the social strata must be included in whatever we are talking about. So that's the language of the National Development Plan, and quite frankly, in my view, we can find ourselves in South Africa going all over many themes and topics and not knowing what we are chasing after. Ramaphosa will come in and will start chasing the issues that are controversial around him. I think we need to go back to the National Development Plan, because that is where the nation has a consensus in terms of economic transformation. When you look at targeted sectors, when you look at social transformation, when you look at the infrastructure programs, the National Development Plan, in my view, kind of encompasses what Labour would expect, what business would expect, and what also the government, as it plays the role of a developmental state, should do.
Prof, you identified Marikana, the lifestyle audits and all that. For me, Marikana stood out because it would appear that there's something which he may be doing right in terms of the political pressures as far as that is concerned. Because I listened to what Floyd Shivambu said yesterday. Floyd Shivambu did not say, you, President, must go back to Marikana and atone or whatever. He says, your government, the ANC must, right? Which means it is possible that albatross has now been moved from the individual to the party, and then today he then pronounces that this is what we're going to do, and individually also, this is what I'm willing to do myself.
Good, because those are the lessons people remember. As I said, there was a series of emails that the then businessman and the second major owner of lawmen, Cyril Ramaphosa, sent to other lawmen leaders, but also lots of engagement with the police minister, with the mining minister. There was a wildcat strike. Recall that the workers wanted 1,250 rand a month. That was their demand. And instead of giving that demand, which the workers eventually have won, but it took them a month after the massacre to actually win the first gains there. Ramaphosa wouldn't negotiate with them, and those emails did hint that, as he put it, concomitant action is necessary, because this was not a strike, it was dastardly criminal. Pointed response from the police, and unfortunately that led the next day, particularly because one of the provincial police commissioners was very aggressive and thought this was a chance to protect Ramaphosa against his main grassroots challenger, still in the ANC, Julius Malema. But you're right, the openness that Floyd Shivambu, that Malema, that the EFF have now embraced Ramaphosa with, after Ramaphosa had Malema and the EFF leadership kicked out of the ANC, is surprising. But I would still say there are some dangers. For example, I would disagree with my colleague, Mr. Mkhize, because Labour doesn't like the National Development Plan. They don't like the way Cyril Ramaphosa put it together. They consider it a second gear, growth, employment, redistribution, neoliberal. So that's both, by the way, Kasatu's statement against the NDP, way back in 2012 when it came out, but also SAFTU, the new union led by Zwelinzima Vavi, and the big metal worker, the biggest union, the NUMSA union, has come out saying this is a class war period and we'll fight. I also think, today we had in the parliamentary, the Pretoria High Court debates about a mining charter and whether, for example, at Marikana, communities really were part of it or just given a few crumbs from the top down. And that's a huge debate about whether the mining charter can be revised, not just for big business, which doesn't want the empowerment piece, but for communities who want to be consulted.
Vishnu? Okay, Vishnu is gone. 089-110-4210 is the number to dial. 089-110-4210. Give us a call. Let's hear what your views are. Kabazela, I know you would look at the political economics. Here we are faced with tomorrow. And in this case, I'm talking about literally tomorrow, as in like Wednesday. What are your expectations?
Well, my expectations for tomorrow are quite simple. One, I expect a sort of a recap by the Minister of Finance on the 14-point plan of the economic recovery, which he tabled last year, and also a little bit of highlights of, the economy is said, even though confidence is down, but the economy is said to be on a positive territory at this quarter. So I'm expecting for him to highlight one or two things building up from the 14-point plan. And secondly, I expect the minister to chip in a little bit of political managing of the budget speech. Yeah. As you see that there are things that got in through the window, even though they are desirable, but in terms of fiscal, such as the announcements of free education, and also the question of land reform in a manner that it has been expressed. I anticipate that he'll make one or two comments. And coming back to what the Prof said, about Labour disagreeing with the National Development Plan, I think it would be wise of the Prof to notice the concrete and the rhetorical when statements are issued. You wouldn't see COSATU voting and pushing the candidacy of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, who also negotiated the minimum wage wage, if they totally disagreed. Obviously, on the bargaining table, we do tit for tat. Okay. So in a sense, while in overall terms, they would want to gain more from the pie of the NDP and how its form and content, but in a sense of consultation, it would not necessarily be seen as how GEAR came on board as a policy, moving from GEAR, because that policy, GEAR policy, did not enjoy as wide consultation as the NDP did.
Okay.
So
hold it there, Kabazela.
Labour consulted itself for supporting. Yeah.
Okay, just hold it there. Let's take you on. Johan, you're in Yeoville. Welcome. Johan? Okay, Johan is also gone. All right. 089-110-4210.
Well, and Poe, he's made some great points that you have to go to the devil in the details. So let me quickly ask, the NDP, the qualitative, yes, it sounds good. As we heard President Ramaphosa appeal to the society, let's help the poorest. But look at the devil in those details. Look at the real big money. I think you'd agree, Mr. Mkhize. It's money for 800 billion rand estimate for exporting coal from the Waterberg, unlocking the minerals. That's the Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Commission strategic project number 1. And number 2 is where you are, South Durban. It's the big port petrochemical complex, 250 billion. That's the big money. Now, those have been very slow to get off the ground. And it's not really Cyril Ramaphosa's fault that when he put those two as the top priorities in the NDP, the 800 billion rail line with Transnet, which we know is riddled with corruption, and the big port, he didn't know then that the commodity price would then crash. And so what was coal exports envisaged at $150 per ton at peak are now in the $90 range. Does it make sense? And now we also have climate reduction, the emissions, and also the core need to keep carbon in the ground and to be less carbon intensive. That's why I think that NDP shouldn't be just taken as a holy grail, but really subjected to the inquiry that I know the trade unions, the community groups, environmentalists are going to do. If Cyril Ramaphosa, as he said today, I have a plan, the NDP, it's time to look at it very closely.
Now, Prof, are we just waiting for the budget to come and go and then...
I think tomorrow is so critical because we heard the talk left. This was a brilliant response, a brilliant SONA, but it was all about helping the poorest. And we have about 63% under the poverty line, the upper bound poverty line. So that's a huge proportion of our society. Now, Malusi Gigaba might walk right. So Ramaphosa talks left, let the dirty work be done by Gigaba in cutting social spending. That's what I'd predict based on the fact that that social grant, that measly 380 rand a month to raise a child, how can anyone manage that? Will be cut further after you discount inflation, especially, poor people face higher inflation. Plus a value-added tax. If that comes up, it mainly hurts the poor.
Mkolisi, welcome.
Mpho.
Baba.
Ngicela ukubingelela wena nama guest akhe studio.
Asibonge butwami.
Yebo. Okokuqala nje into esiyilindele nje sizakhamuzi zase South Africa ukuthi upresident wethu icabinet lakhe alishintshe. Number 2, into esiyilindele ukuthi kuba bonke laba enza nabo abe benza ubugebengu nama-family, they must be arrested. But la ekutheni ashintshe khona icabinet yakhe, he must consult with the alliances, COSATU and SABC.
Okay. Bengithi kuwe uma uthi ayishintshwe le cabinet ufuna ukuthi ayenzeni akukhishwa abantu njengoba besoshila ukuthi abanye bele baboshwe vele mhlawumbe indaba yokuthi akureduce inamba yama ministers okanye ama departments ama ministries lapha.
Okay, engakusho nje oqala nalokho kungenzeka ukuthi angawaregister ama ministers, but into ebalulekile kakhulu fanele icabinet alishintshe. Ikakhulukazi angeke asebenze necabinet lika Jacob Zuma okusho ukuthi ngoba naye kusho ukuthi naye usanobugebengu lobo besikhala ngabe South Africa. Ekugcineni into esiyilindele nje Mpho at last sengivala silindele ukuthi umama unaledi Phando as a deputy president because uye esimbona as a person who is in a good standing.
Udidi ayephi manje?
Udidi unekanda zakhe zasempumalanga.
Mqongo kuzwele mfethu.
Ngiyabonga Mpho.
Khabazela akuphendule wena ke manje.
Angizungena kakhulu kulezi phakamiso samxo. I would not like to get into that. But I want to get into the question of as Prof Bond was talking on that the NDP is not like a holy grail document. I think what disturbs it in the main is the level of debt that we have in South Africa. One as a country, I mean, when you look at our GDP, 70% of our GDP that comes in, about 21% goes to service the debt, and the debt is forever increasing to an extent that when the debt is increasing, we try to raise revenue by increasing taxes, as we did last year to say people in the bracket of 1.5 are going to be introduced into a special cap of a tax. And what happens? Most of those people are in senior management in companies. Then you find that corporates hold back in investing the monies, and then you find that there's billions and billions of rands kept by companies because they're running away from those kind of implicative taxes. I'm not so much on the sin taxes on your cigarettes and all those things. But my interest is that how is the budget speech tomorrow going to talk us out or work us out of debt? Even when you look at the countries that have the same around GDP figures, your Australia, your Malaysia, etc., we are the least that saves its GDP. Okay. The rest of them, they save a big chunk, over 60% of their GDP. And it goes back to building the economy. But in our country, you find that most of our GDP goes to servicing the public debt. So I want to hear how we're really going to try to work ourselves.
Okay, hold it there, Kabazela. Adolf, welcome. Adolf?
bakhomba na Adolf Maganda lapha Pretoria.
Rolibuwa.
Ngiyangana ndikupfunga rimo president over ne wamba ngandele inena ndikufanda takala isezinda khonda bazonzori ba kutito shotolo batochincha that cabinet ya office ngone cabinet ne yakotatia iwisela mrao uri bakono jenisa bathu bene wazo komisa pana na South Africa.
Adolf, mumwe na mumwe zwinga ukolira ngae cabinet yotochinyane zwingapanga pana vana vasho.
Nizenda ngotoziyamba ndizori cabinet ine yabaoniza zvino ndiyone ine yofara corruption yothe ya South Africa lona azithusi chitu na rachincha thora jenisa muthu muchiranga chena butongo zwikhwine if arali richikoncha thoyothe ranchana muchira uri sto nampumbu sto jena zvote zvoserera zvezviswa zvine zvingasithi adoti zari pa problem yela tangane ubva murao.
Hayi lofara. Well, Prof, I'm the only privileged South African here who can speak all the languages, so I must now translate for you and Israel there. Well, the caller is saying, and just hammering on what the other caller, Mkolisi, had said also, they want this complete overhaul of the cabinet.
Yeah. Well, why not? Because if you're the president, and the prior president has become notorious, it was just less than a year ago that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan was fired, and Mkhabisi Jonas, his deputy, was fired. Blaine Zamande was reshuffled out. So there's some important names from, let me say, the tradition of COSATU, the Communist Party, the progressive forces. And maybe there is a chance that Ramaphosa will surround himself. There is some talk that there is space somewhere for Gordhan, or that Mkhabisi Jonas will be brought back. Well, those would be very interesting times indeed to have sort of a revitalization of a cabinet that's seen as profoundly Zuma influenced. I mean, there's a danger that if he doesn't, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be nicknamed Ramazupta, because this is a fusion with Ace Magashule, with Jesse Duarte, very close to the Gupta family, at the leadership of the party. Perhaps not, though, in cabinet where Ramaphosa has real power.
Let's go to Datason. Mren, ayate mruduaga. Mren.
And also I must greet your guests also there.
Yes.
Pap. The president have spoken.
Yep.
Fortunately enough, last week I was live at the SONA.
Okay.
I was in the parliament as a guest for the president.
Congratulations.
So, I've heard everything the president said.
Okay.
My biggest request is only one.
Yeah.
The president must stick to what he said.
Yes.
The people have spoken to the president. Reshuffle is very, very much.
Who do you want to see gone, Datason?
The president is going right, the cabinet ministers are going left. So reshuffling is primarily important for now.
Okay.
And we can take it from there.
Murutua.
If he say send me, we've had him. If he say now we are on the era of dawn, we've had him. So reshuffle as soon as possible. Thank you so much, Mpo.
Muruti, before let's amai.
Hey.
Who do you want sacked? Who do you want fired, like as early as yesterday?
Faith Motambi.
Oh, okay.
Matabida Kameni.
All right.
Malusi Gigaba.
Oh, okay.
The Fiscal Balula.
Okay.
And then who is this one? Mamluku Kubai.
All right.
No Zamukoyani. A lot of them, maybe 10 of them.
Hey, yeah.
But the biggest of the
Oh, okay. That is on. Well, we had you. This seems to be this common denominators in all this speculated reshuffles and all that. But I don't understand when people talk about the deputy presidency, what would happen to Didi Mabuza, because he's the deputy president of the party, and
whether the embarrassment of having someone like that who's got such an awful track record in Mpumalanga, that's still all to be completely unveiled, but there's enough indications. I get the sense he's best left in the provincial side, and then 2019 worry about it. But that it's maybe a gender equality moment. The name Lindiwe Sisulu has come up as a potential. But the names that your caller hasn't mentioned include our Minister of Mines, Zwane, who everyone in the industry, whether you're in the
river man,
or David Mhlobo, the Minister of Energy, who was moved to energy at the end of last year, presumably to do a deal with the Russians for nuclear. That's been the sort of speculation. Now there's a lot of denials. We don't really know what behind the scene deals were done. We do know that Jacob Zuma tried last week to stay another 6 months. Two theories: that he had Mhlobo working overtime to try to get the nuclear deal in place. He was doing this IRP, the Integrated Resources Plan for the energy sector, which would bring nuclear in. And now that's been shelved, I think probably forever, because just as Mkhize says, we can't afford it. Okay. Secondly, it was to stay for BRICS. So the Brazil, Russia, India, China summit, which was in Durban in 2013, will be in Sandton the end of July. And that's one of the other interesting indicators of Jacob Zuma's desire to have legacy and to stick around to host them. Okay. And he thought he had a deal, but apparently he was double-crossed on that one.
Well, we've run out of time, and tomorrow is the budget. Well, we will meet again tomorrow. That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. I record.